Hey folks, just a quick introduction to start the setup process on this really nice Stratocaster style guitar. This is an unknown make of guitar. It's made by a luthier according to the listing that I bought it from, and I suppose often you can run the risk of getting very unlucky with these things, but actually I got lucky with this one. This is a very well made piece of kit. The only downside for me is that it's got a Fender, fake Fender logo on the top, which to me spoils it. It doesn't need it. It's actually a really quality instrument, and it's probably really good quality because it's got the basic, I think it's an Affinity, Squier Affinity body as a start point. But what really makes it good quality is all this Wilkinson hardware. Everything on this guitar is Wilkinson, right down to, well, it's also got some shallow locking strap buttons as well, but the tuners are the sort of Wilkinson classic, what do they call these things? Clouson, is it Clouson or Grover? I can't remember, but the classic tuners that you get on the very old Fenders, and indeed on my 1981 JV Fender. And the tuning stability of this design is absolutely brilliant. I love them. There's nothing can go wrong with them. They're really brilliantly done. It's got a great maple neck, frets are in pretty good condition, and the hardware, the Wilkinson single coil pickups, play really well. So I like this guitar. I've been playing it since I bought it without doing any work to it, but I am going to kick off right now the process of taking it apart. And the reason I'm doing this is because the first thing I'm going to do to this guitar, obviously I'm going to do the fret job, I'm going to do a normal clean up, the usual stuff, but I'm going to keep this guitar. I think it's going to be my number 3 playing guitar. But the reason I'm kicking off right now is because what I want to do is to sand back this headstock and replace the fake Fender logo with a fun one of my own, since I'm going to keep it and play it, and my own is going to have the fun reloved thing with a picture of Morris the cat on it. So just to get this process underway, I need to get the strings off, get the neck off, store the body, hang the body up out of the way, and just begin the process of taking care of this neck. And it is, like I say, it's been great fun to play from out of the box. So, you know, congratulations or thanks, whatever, to the builder who put it together, because you did a really good job. So if that's you out there, I would happily buy another one from you, because you clearly know what you're doing. I can also see that the bridge, the tremolo block, is also a Wilkinson, and it's a solid steel block, which means it's a hell of a lot better to sustain than the usual Fender crumbly alloy, steel alloy things. Yeah, so you can see that there, great big chunk of steel, bit like I was looking at on the old Korean plywood laminate strat yesterday when I took that apart. But you know, that's always a feature of Wilkinson tremolo blocks. They're solid steel and much more substantial than the Squier, equivalent Squiers. Now this one, for some reason, this is stuck. I'm going to need to poke it out with something. I just want to get this neck off for a minute while I get on with other things. Why isn't that coming out? Kind of buried in there. Often a poke with a very small Allen key will help this thing on its way, if you can get in there at the same. Yeah, there we go. It's out. So another pile of strings bites the dust. They were not too bad quality anyway, playable in the time that I've been messing about with it. Originally I was going to do this up and sell it on, but over the last while I've been just playing around with different combinations of guitars for playing in a band, and this one sort of stood out as a good option for a Strat sound. I've got a few options, but this one impressed me enough to think it's worth keeping. So I'm going to do it up with the intention of keeping it as a third guitar for rehearsing and maybe playing live when I get around to that in the spring. But also keeping it because the way it's built it represents the quality I like. Let me just grab that call. Hold on a sec. Oh yes, back again. Well, just handling some day job work phone calls there. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just taking off all the tuners from this lovely custom made red strat style guitar, and these are Wilkinson deluxe tuners. Very simple but very effective. Taking them off not because strictly have to or there's anything wrong with them, but I want to I'm going to end up spraying this headstock once I've taken the fake Fender thing off it and put my own fun water slide decal on. So I need it clear of bits to allow me to do that. But the decals are really great fun. They're so simple. I need to take these. It's interesting. It's got gold hardware, but these ferrules things are silvery. Pardon me. So when you need to take those out, it's a good idea to get a something like a big Allen key or some similar shaped thing to knock them out. In fact, these aren't quite big enough, so I'm going to have to go on a little hunt for something else to do it. Alright, so and also I'm short of a container. I'll go on a little hunt down here. A temporary container for all the bits. Give them a clean anyway before I put them all back on, but they are quite nice condition, so there's no major wear or anything. Nice push-in tremolo as well. It isn't one of those screw-in things which you most of the time you find. I've got some fairly chunky Allen keys here. Have I got one that will just... No, it's just too big. I'll probably do. Don't know how firmly these things have been wedged in place, so I might need to support this neck and do a little bit of knocking, which I'll do off camera in a minute because I don't want to knock anything. This head, by the way, this neck has got quite an interesting thingamajig. What do you call it? Shim. It's actually got a block in place, so the builder has done quite an interesting job shaping a little wooden block to position this neck. You can see, by the way, from there, this is a laminate. So I have to say, it's not an Affinity body. I would say that's a Korean 1980s Squier body, which is why it feels so good. So very similar to the one that I've been working on yesterday. So yeah, interesting things. You open up the patient and you find some interesting secrets. Now I'm also running out of dangling string for holding things up. I've got a tool here which can come off. I hung up the spoke shave, but it's taking up a bit of hanging real estate that isn't necessary. So I'll liberate that. It's not very long, but it will be just about enough. Should be enough anyway to hang up this fella. But these, that's why it feels so heavy, because these are very, very substantial, sometimes these laminate guitars, and I really like that solidity. Interestingly, the one I did yesterday, the current one that's been worked on now, isn't as heavy as this. So it's not the case that the laminate is always this heavy, as yesterday's working proves. I'm just going to thread this through here a minute. Is that enough? Tightened up? Yeah, I'll do. Okay, so that's that body safely out of the way for the time being. All the bits are off, and I'm just going to stop up now and take off these ferrules with a bit of a bang. Well, straight back in after that. That was a bit of an unpleasant scenario. The only downside about this is that the previous, the maker of this guitar has glued these things in with super glue, and as a result they were not really that keen on coming out, and so I got one or two of them out, and then the others were sticking, and I really didn't want to stress the neck, the headstock, sorry, anymore, and I found myself in that tricky decision point. So do I put the two I've taken out back in and just call it quits, or do I go and try and take all but one, the sticky, difficult one out, and then kind of decide on the sticky one how to get it out? And the thing that really swung the decision for me was the fact that in order to do what I want to do with this headstock, I have to clear it flat so I can sand it, and so I can spray it and then sand it flat as well. And having these little ferrules sticking up, even if I were to cover them so that I can spray over the top of them, it's just going to make the whole process of sanding the finished piece almost impossible. So the decision really was a no decision, particularly then when I got all five out and I was just left with the one very difficult one, which then I had to just keep on working on till it came out. But the real worry was whether this was going to split something here, because otherwise, I mean, I can see why the maker has used glue to keep them in. It's a reasonable build decision, but he's obviously not intending for anyone to come after him and sand down his headstock and put a new logo on. Anyway, so there you go, there are the ferrules out. The holes are a little bit ragged, but they'll look fine once this thing's back in. And they're also there's also a hole here which isn't very well filled, that came from another string tree that was in there, and it's been taken out. So when I sand that down, I can actually fill that as well if I want to. Okay, and so there's quite a bit to do on the neck. Then obviously there's the fret leveling and all that stuff. The nut looks pretty good. I won't do anything to that. Once I've done all the fret leveling work, then I will mask it off, and then I'll sand off this part of it. I'm not going to take it all off the back side, there's no reason. I'll take it all off the front side, get rid of this, then start to put a couple of layers on, smooth that down, then put the water slide on, and then put some more layers on. Okay, but for now this is going to get hung out of the way to fight another day, and there endeth this brief a brief video about that particular guitar. Meantime, I'm just going to check my building up on my test bed for lacquer repairs. Actually, I should, if I'd have been smart, I should have gone across the corner, but I wasn't thinking, so I haven't. Right, okay, so that's all good. Going back to where we were, let's get rid of those. Going back to where we were on Joe's second guitar through the Reloved workshop. I'll cut the video and start again. Well, here we are, just piling straight into a bit of sanding here. I'm going to take away this fake Fender headstock logo, and there's only one way to do it, and that's to go in pretty rough with sandpaper. I'm going to back out and braid it off with lots of finer papers, but to begin with we've got to go in with the heavy duty paper, because there's only one way of doing it really, and that's going down below the layer where this decal lives, the two decals I should say. So just pow, off we go. I'm using 80 grit paper here, and it's very, very abrasive. And it's also quite good because it lasts a long time. And it's taken off the little bit at the end there that says synchronized body, and we're actually now at the level of getting rid of the fender bit. So kiss it goodbye just about now. Look at that, away it goes. Trying to make sure I sort of even out treatment I give to the rest of it, because I want to grade obviously the lacquer in again when I redo it. There goes the Fender Stratocaster water slide decal. Last bits coming off. Sort of slightly scratchy as it comes off, but pretty good. It's done. And then it's a matter of now bringing this back up with some finer papers. Won't take too much. Didn't have to go that far really to get rid of it, but there we have. Fender gone. Ta-da! Take a quick picture of that. Never get the temperature right in here. It's either too cold, minus a million, or it's I've got too many layers on to keep warm. Okay, and what else have we got in here? We've got two string tree holes, and that's okay. I'm now just going to use a bit of finer paper just to bring this to I want to make a finer finish on here. So we can go from the 80 up to 600. It sounds like a huge jump, and it is. It just takes a little bit of work, and persistent work, and that will smooth it off nicely. And so the first thing I want to do when I'm redoing this is I'm going to put a layer of lacquer on here before I put the water slide on. To do that, I'm going to need this to be pretty smoothed out anyway. So. Oh, it's lovely wood. Yeah, so I don't need to bore you with too much more of this, but just you take your time to get it back smooth, and it's a lovely hardwood, it really is. And it's still got some fairly big scratches in here, but they'll come out with a bit more time. It's taking such a fine layer of wood off at the moment each time that you've got, with a 600 paper you've got so much control. It's lovely. Wow. Beautiful. And then I'll mask off the neck, all the rest of it, so I can do the bits I need to do, the spraying on here and the headstock decal. But I won't do it yet. I think I'll do all the other stuff first, which is doing the frets and making sure that's all done, ready to go. This isn't perfect at the moment, but the tiny scratches in there would be taken out with lacquer going into them anyway. But I want to get it right. But it is a beautiful, beautiful smooth wood. Such a lovely finish, and it's going to have a really nice Morris finish, Morris logo on it. And I've got another one here that I'm doing for Jean's Reloved Guitars is one of its oldest fans, we've been kind of cheerleading back since I started it last year, really. And she wanted a Morris logo, and I thought, well, I tell you what, I'll give her one on a headstock that she can hang up. And what I will do is I think I'll cut it off this neck, because this neck, strangely enough, has, I'll show you now, it's one that was, it was chopped in half by the previous owner, and it was really cheap. I bought the guitar for spares anyway, but the neck itself was cut all the way through almost. If I get this off, so it'd be kind of nice just to send a headstock through, and she can put that on the wall or something, or prop it up on the sideboard. Anyway, yeah. So there's the chop. It's kind of fixed now, and it's playable, believe it or not. There's no problem with it, but it's not something that I could ever hope to sell. So I'm going to cut round and take this off, and then at least I'll have a nice fun gift that I can give to Jean for her undying support over the last year, and kind of endlessly sharing We Love Guitars stuff. But it's nice because what I can do is I can actually test this, use this as the sort of test piece before I do the that nice Wilkinson equipped piece over there. I could really use doing a bit more, slightly more heavier grade. It's a bit much going from 600, sorry, going from 80 to 600. So it does make a bit more sense to have a midpoint like this, 240 in between, to make the job a lot easier. Same will apply actually to the other one, but this will get rid of a lot of the scratching very quickly. So yeah, nice to have a bit of spare material, because I can do a test one here, and then what I learn from this I can then just go and apply to that nice Wilkinson Strat that I really do want to do well, because I want to play it. It's going to be is already a really good guitar. Okay, so this 240 gets rid of some of the big scratches quite nicely, and lines us up to go to the 600 much better. And this bit on the back too. Quite a bit of lacquer still on it, but it's not important. It's really just the front side we're concentrating on. So it's starting to build up a dust everywhere. This one I'll do a little bit of 240 and then I'll go back to the 600 again. Just make sure I get rid of any of those bigger scratches in here. Shouldn't be a problem now. Beautiful, beautiful wood. Nice thing about this wood as well is that it's so fine, such a lovely hardwood, that you could shine this up without any lacquer at all. The micromesh papers, for example, would put just a beautiful finish onto it without need for any chemicals. But I suppose the downside of that is that it wouldn't cover up the water slide. So in order to get this thing looking sort of credible, like a manufactured guitar, I suppose. I don't know why that's actually credible, but in order to get it like that, then obviously you've got to use the lacquer. It's still got some scratching down here. Take all this out and shake it out in the fresh air in a minute. Let's turn this off and get some fresh air in. Ah, beautiful colours, late night. Show you how lovely the colours look at this time of day. It's like a smoking gun, isn't it? You can see the lacquer then reflecting on that one. But a lovely clean wood. Beautiful. So, sun going down, another early February day. See, I'm probably covered in dust and sweat, but there we are. It's beautiful. Isn't it, Morris? You really much prefer to be out there than in here. Sure. Right, I'm going to stop this a minute, come back to you in a little while. Lowest spot and be level. We are going to do that, but the first bit I'm going to do is just to do a check, just for curiosity. And I do it using this fret leveling fret rocker, which is a flat edge, and I put it across 3 frets at a time, and I look for, can I rock it and get a click? And that, if I can, it means it's pivoting over the central or the middle fret. And that means one of 2 things. Either the middle fret is higher than the others, or it means that either one or other of the ones either side is lower, causing the middle one to appear higher. Now, the beauty is, you don't really need to know strictly which is which. All you're looking out for is there unevenness, and a tiny little bit. And it's, as I said, it's relative unevenness. If you were going to do use a sort of one-by-one method to level these frets relative to each other, then you, that is such a noisy tablet, then you would, it would be important for you to know which was actually high and which was actually low, and you'd have to do a bit more plotting and checking. But because we are going to do it all in one fell swoop, we don't really need to know. My interest sort of stops at relative levelness, which is what I'm finding out here. Now this is actually a very good neck. This is remarkably few, and it's very mild. Where there is any unevenness, it's incredibly mild. So it's interesting for me because it confirms that this is a luthier-built custom guitar, because it's a little telltale sign, because I know that no guitar comes out of the factory accidentally with level frets. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Every guitar comes out of the factory with uneven frets. So if you find one like this that has, broadly speaking, level frets, which this does, well, pretty much almost all together level frets, then you can pretty much say that it's been in the hands of a tech or a luthier. So it's kind of good because it confirms that status, which I could tell anyway, by the way, from the quality of the parts and the build. It's clearly built by somebody who loves guitars and knows what they're doing, which is great. But if you like, this bit, the numbers now really confirm it. And there is a little bit of work we can do on this to improve it. So that's fantastic. We'll, when we add this up, we'll get a very low number. So of 22 frets, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 out of 22. Sorry, we're checking 20. 8 out of 20, which is 40%. So this unknown make neck comes in at an unusually small figure when compared to other guitars on this list, and this is by no means an exhaustive list because I've run out of space, but you can see that it's on a par with quite a well built Jackson SDX Adrian Smith Charvel San Dimas at the top there, and a vintage Les Paul copy, which had also, by the way, been through a luthier's hands by the look of it. So yeah, this is so mildly or predominantly level that I can be sure that it's been through a tech's hands. Now this puts me in a sort of an interesting question really, because what we now have to ask is, given the relative minorness of this, do I want to go through the whole process of levelling all of this in order just to balance up these very mild uneven patches? And I think actually for once, just for once, there's a couple of ways of thinking about it. One is that if I just do these spots, I can pretty much see a couple of strokes with a sandpaper, and that will be down. Same with all of those. Then what we're left with is the need to just gently re-crown those, and then what we're left with is a general need to polish all of these frets. And that we can do with sandpaper without really doing any other clever thing. So on one hand you could say, well, we could take a spot approach to doing these. That saves us what? Well, it doesn't save us time, it's actually longer than doing it with this. Then the spot approach means we don't have to reprofile these, but then we look up close and say, well, you know, there is some wear on these anyway, and actually if we don't do the overall method, then what's going to happen is we're going to get clean, nice frets here, but these will have some indentations in them. And we look at the overall condition of these frets and think to ourselves, well, they are quite well worn, but there is still enough metal. And I think I'm going to go for the overall fret leveling technique. Okay, just because there are a couple of factors that it's 40%, that's more than 10 or 20%. If it was just 1 or 2 frets, probably wouldn't. There are some marks here which could do with getting rid of, and yeah, let's just do the whole thing the simple way. So step 1 is mark a pen over the top of your frets. Now what I do know from my bit of research, which you wouldn't know if you hadn't done a check, and so it's always good to do a check, even though you don't technically have to if you're using this method. But what I have learned from doing the check is how mild the unevenness is, and that's something you wouldn't know if you hadn't done it. Knowing how mild it is, it just tells me that I don't need to use much pressure for this. I just need to treat these frets as lightly as possible in order to balance them out. And actually, by the way, there's one here with some bad scratching on it, which again will be taken care of. So there are relatively few uneven frets, and those that are uneven are relatively mildly uneven. So light touch on this one, and it shouldn't take long to balance it out. So here we go, we just straight away off into it. Start at the very back, constant pressure all the way through. Again, not too hard, because we know that there's not too much wrong with this. I'm just making sure it touches all of the frets to get it going, and then straight the way down, working our way towards the centre, trying to make sure we cover all frets evenly. And stopping at that point, I'm just going to brush off all the bits, and you can take a very quick look and say, okay, pretty much everything's been scraped except 1 or 2 spots, and to reach those and make sure everything's got a treatment, I'm going to go back down the very edge and just redo everything lightly. But you see that this is getting a better coverage now. It's easier to get them as you're at the end of your run rather than at the beginning where you haven't got the kind of even pressure yet. Okay, and then if I want to, I can just take a little 45 degree down the side there. So that's me done. Everything looks great. It won't be a problem on this guitar because it's so mild, but if you had an area of really uneven frets, you could just go back to here and test it out, and you won't get any rocking at all because you know you've taken care of it. So that's that done. I'm just looking at these and seeing, getting a good light on them. Yeah, there's quite a bit of metal. If they were any lower than that, I'd be into the sort of refretting land. So this is a neck that has lived a bit already. So the next stage, now having levelled them all, now we're going to just draw over the top of them again with the marker pen. And the purpose of that is to, similar thing, last time it was to easily show us where we'd been with the file. And the same thing in this stage, only we're doing it for a slightly different reason. And this stage, we're using a fret crowning tool to reshape frets which we've just made a bit flat on top. So now the objective is to run opposite direction across the fret using a concave tool, and this would need the medium side. And we run across the fret with this tool, and the concave edges of this diamond coated edges, basically what it does is it takes off the shoulder of this levelled flattened fret, and by doing so therefore kind of renders it back to the right shape. I'm just having a look at this. We are starting off with, in my book, not as really as much material on these frets as I'd like. It's marginal, but anyway. So this tool, as I say, it reshapes the fret by taking away the sharp shoulder, and it keeps going until until the top of the fret almost hits the underside of this concave shape. But we stop just before that happens, so that the important bit is that the little black line of marker pen down the middle of this fret tells us that there's a point on that fret which is exactly the same height as it was a minute ago when we levelled it. And it's that little thin black line that confirms to us that we haven't reduced the fret in height. And if we can get all of those like that, we know that the tips of these frets are all still level relation to each other. And that's what the whole exercise is about. It's about relative evenness. So sort of feeling the way this is going, it is marginal in terms of remaining fret life, I have to say. It will play okay, but I would prefer a fresh set of jumbo frets in there. I have the option to do that. I've got quite a few different frets coming, and just out of interest, if I wanted to do it, I'm just going to use these brass inserts to check the radius. I've pretty much got it straight away. So it's a 12-inch radius, which is a standard, fairly standard Fender. Oh, brilliant! Fairly standard Fender radius, and I've got two sets of Fender 12-inch pre-cut doofers frets coming, but right now these are all currently 7.25s for the more vintage guitars. But yeah, they will be here, so before too long I will have an option if I want to refret this. It'll be interesting because I haven't refretted a maple fingerboard yet, and of course the maple fingerboard has a layer of lacquer all over it, so how you deal with it is slightly different, but there's nothing like diving into it to learn how to do it. I'm always game for that. So. In fact, it's what I've enjoyed most in the last year, is just doing things I didn't know before. Especially when you get to my age. Those of you out there who are similar age will know how bizarrely satisfying it is to do something where you're forced to learn on a regular basis. It's only when you do that you realise that for years you've been a bit mentally dormant, even though you think you've been learning stuff. It's so easy to get into cruise control mode. So that's why, quite often with pre-loved guitars I've gone outside of what I would say would be my comfort zone, use the corporate Americanism, and just take risks and do things. Yeah, these are a bit low for my liking. Well, I say, we'll do this for the time being, but if it doesn't play well, I won't have any qualms about replacing them, because if this is going to be a playing guitar, then I want it. I've got time. I'm not in a hurry, first thing, and I also want it to play right. Consideration, I suppose, about the height of the remaining metal on these frets comes into play at that initial point where we're looking at how many frets are uneven, what the surface condition of the frets are, and therefore are we going to do it this way or are we going to try and do it that way. In some ways, the fact that these are fairly worn anyway might be a fairly good argument for doing a spot levelling approach, but I'm not afraid of doing a refret, so it's this will either play acceptably well for me, or it'll be straight into, okay, pull them out, let's do a complete refret, make it play like it should. And it's really only a matter of, it's not money really, it's am I willing to invest time in making sure this plays the way I want it to. Okay, these few up here are clearly, you feel they've got more metal left in them. It's not necessarily been used in lead guitar mode too much. Okay, nearly there. Right. Won't be long. So I've got a few different things on the go at the moment, so it's a matter of jumping from one to the other and stopping the video, restarting it, and then a bit later on I'll just stitch all the correct bits of video together. Sometimes it goes a bit wrong and I get the wrong things edited into the wrong things, but I try to spend as little time editing anything as possible, just because it makes the whole proposition unviable, really, I suppose. If I was adding editing time into all the other time spent on these guitars, it just wouldn't be a viable proposition at all. Plus the fact that these videos are they're never meant to be entertainment. I'm quite clear about that. They're for information, for those of you who might be doing something similar, or for those of you who are interested in buying this particular guitar, then it's really useful information, usually. Okay, so part 2 done. The frets all reprofiled, and the next part is just a matter now of sanding them down and ending up the final stage being a Dremel polish. Now, sanding stage is probably everything's critical, but in a way the sanding stage is very critical. It's a place where you can get it very easily wrong, and if you get it wrong, the cost of getting it wrong is that you end up going through the whole motions of it. It takes you the same amount of time, but by the time you won't know you've got it wrong until you put the strings back on the guitar and put it all together, and then you come to play it, and find you've got these sort of gritty scratches which makes the thing play horribly. So you always have to work really hard to get this bit right. That's not a very good tear. That's because I'm trying to cut too many bits of paper at the same time. Dull. Okay, so in principle this is very simple. Once you've levelled and then reprofiled your frets, they're now roughly the right shape, but they're really full of scratches. At worst, they've got scratches from the original fret levelling file, which is incredibly rough, and at best they've got some scratches from this tool here, which is less rough, but it's completely unideal. So you've got some of these and some of those, and the next job is you've got to get rid of all of those scratches, first of all with this medium grade paper like a 240. So I'm going to have to keep going until whatever you do with this paper, you're left with nothing but those marks, not those marks. Once you've done that, and only when you've done that, you can move on to the next one, which is then a job of replacing the 240 marks with 600 marks. And when the 600 marks are the only marks on the board, then you use a micro mesh, or I use a micro mesh set, which goes from 1500 right the way through to 12,000, which makes a nice polish. And then when that's done, I go once round with some polishing powder and the Dremel. Okay, so kind of simple logic, but the really important bit is not to move on until you've removed the big scratches from the fret leveling file. And just to make sure of that, I use a microscope, magnifying glass, and a kind of a rule which says if after 2 sheets of that I still find any tiny marks from the longitudinal fret leveling file, then I'll use another sheet of this and make sure those marks are out before I move on. So dead simple to begin with. I kick off by using my fingers for most of this 240 stuff, but for the 600 and beyond I'm going to use a shaped block, which makes things quite easy. When I'm at it, let's just plug this back in because there's no point running out of power. So here we go. I'm pressing down with my fingers because what I want is my fingers to run up and over the frets in a sort of smooth sine wave, rather than, I don't want it to just scrape across the top and end up flattening the fret anymore. So pressing down sort of forces the fingers to ride up and over like a dune buggy going over the sand dunes. And I just keep on going. Most important at this stage is that the grade of paper I'm using here, 240, is more than enough to level frets and therefore take the frets even lower. And if you do too much on one spot, then it's quite logical that you will create a flat spot and thereby reintroduce problems with unevenness. So what's really critical is when we're doing this is we make sure that we're giving the whole neck the same amount of treatment. And if we do that all the way through, then yes, it will be fractionally lower when we finish, because this is a destructive process. You are taking material away to achieve the result you want. But ideally, you will have taken the same amount away from all the frets, or so close as it makes no difference. So if you're kind of tempted to rush it, or to not to concentrate on this business of getting it an even coverage, then keep in mind that if you reintroduce unevenness at this point, you've basically undone all the work you've done on the neck up to this point. So it's quite should be sobering enough to force you to concentrate. Now you might notice me spending a bit of extra attention on the ends, because having done this 80 plus times, I know from experience that the ends don't get as good a coverage as the middle does, so I can safely pay attention to the ends a little bit more, and I need to if I'm going to make sure that all of those little marks are removed. Okay, that's one sheet of paper. Got quite a good sort of dig into that. I've removed quite a bit of the marks. I'm brushing the dust from that onto the floor. You might even really want to be wearing a breathing protector at this point, because that dust is not very nice stuff. Again, second piece of paper of the same grade, and off I go again. It's very possible to get where we want to get with just two of these sheets if you concentrate enough on the ends as you're doing it. Two sheets is enough to do it, but quite often it's the ends that have a few tiny little marks and force us to go to the third sheet. But like all of these things, when you're working on the neck, it's not very attractive work for somebody who's impatient. It teaches you that you have to be, it's got to be kind of rigorous and patient to get this done. But the payoffs are great. When you do get it done, you will have a really beautifully reconditioned set of frets that feel new, look new, and because they're level and shiny, play like new. And of course, that essentially a relationship with your guitar is principally through here. It's quite a significant thing to do. Refresh your tactile relationship with the neck. Kind of like marriage counselling for guitars. Steady on. Right. So I'm at that stage now where quite a lot of the hard work's done. I really need to know whether this has got all those scratches out. One technique I've found over time helps is at this stage, if I get 2500 grit paper and go 90 degrees to the flow or the direction I've been sanding up till now with this fine paper, it sort of dulls it down, but it really helps to show up any of the little potholes that are still left behind from the fret leveling file. And because at this stage that's the most important bit of all of it, any help we can get at this point is useful. So I can see straight away, I can see someone here on the first fret, and I'm going to make a mark. It's very, very tiny, and it's really difficult. If I had the Fuji camera, I'd probably get a close-up of it just to show you, but because it would really help actually to know what these look like. I wonder if I can do it by zooming in on this. Do for phone, the iPhone. Since there is a mark there, and since it would help us to, or help me to explain what the thing looks like. I'm going to just physically zoom in. Yeah, okay, I can see on this. I'm going to zoom in again, and then I'll show you on the camera. If I can just open the camera. It's going to make all kinds of horrible interference noises, I'm sure, but come on, pictures. Okay, that's not so bad. This is it's quite a lot of stuff. Okay, so can you see on the top of the fret there are little black potholes? Looks far worse actually than it is. Most of it's okay. It's those dark ones that you can see that really are the ones. Those will end up being gritty under your fingers. And the interesting thing about it is that if you were to look at it from here, you'd say, well, that's pretty good, we're on the way, all going well. So it's really at this level of close scrutiny that you get to spot them. Now, what I'm finding straight away is on a quick look now, because I know I'm going to do another piece of paper, quick look through the rest show me there's one or two tiny marks on this one, but by and large it's that first one, and it's usually the first and the last ones. And it's just because when you do this sanding, for some reason we can't get very easily to the first and last ones, they get overlooked. Yeah, that's not so bad. All the rest so far are good. I'm turning it against the light as well to help highlight anything. So I've taken a lot of time on these last couple, and there's a little blemish there, but mostly it's all good apart from this first one. There's quite a bit of stuff. So knowing that it's difficult to get to, I'm going to use this shaped block now, and I'm going to pay a bit of close attention to this last one, and I'm going to use the point of this to kind of push and pull over the top of it. And I'll go to this one in the middle as well, make sure I take care of that one, and then down to the end for this last one. You can see it's difficult because there's nothing to run off the end onto. It's hard to put the same pressure onto this first one. But in a sense it's not so bad on the very last fret, for the simple reason that once you're there there's no other frets, so you can afford that one to be a bit uneven. It's not many times that you end up bending a string on the final 22nd fret, but Todd's law is there will be a time when you need to do it, and if you've got horrible crunchy pothole on it, you'll know about it. Okay, now I know from experience that will be enough. We'll take care of it. So I can now switch to the 600s, and 600s I can use straight away on the shaped block. And now we know we're going from 240 grit scratches to replace all of those with finer 600 grit scratch. You have to hold on tight to it, sometimes it comes off. Again, same principle, we want to try and avoid skimming over the top and flattening it out any more than it already was. So the more sort of straight down you can do and let it bounce up and over is quite good. I'm going to use a couple of sheets of this, probably don't need more than that. The interesting bit is if you hadn't got out those little scratches by this stage, then there'd be no chance of getting them out. They would just carry on through into the polishing stage. You just don't see them, so they look like everything's going really well. Of course, I've learned that the hard way, which you can, no doubt, it's the only way to learn it. Same with the combination of various papers and Dremel treatments. Up till recently, I started off, whatever, 8 months ago. I would always end up this process with a go with a Dremel, using one or two of these polishing compounds, the liquids. And I was finding actually that they didn't really add any more to the finish. And it's a very practical, sort of logical thing. The final sheet in this micromesh series here is 12,000, and basically the creams I was using really didn't improve on 12,000 because that's so fine, and so I didn't have that stage in there for the next 6 months or so, until just the other day Claire got some polishing compounds for the Dremel, and one of which seemed to, on testing, seemed to really improve the whole thing. So I've now put that stage back in, and it takes another 10 minutes or so, and it's a bit messy, but it really has a really nice shine on the end of the process, so why not? Okay, so we now move from the 600s to the 1500 micro mesh, and this now starts to feel like, you know, you're on the easy bit, but just, you know, keep in mind the scale of the jump from 600 to 15 is nearly twice the numbering, so you're halving, if you like, the grit or the roughness of the paper. So it's going to need a bit longer to get all those scratches from 600 scratches down to 1500. So I guess the bigger the jump, the longer treatment's going to need to even it out. I do apologise if you've watched this sequence a million times before, but you're only yourself to blame. The point being here, of course, is I've got to do it a million times. It's okay, so I don't mind saying it a million times. Okay, 15 done. A small jump to 18, so less time required to be spent on it. For those who haven't seen this before, these micro mesh sheets are a fantastic investment. Actually, you should have them around your house for almost anything, because they will take raw wood and shine it up to a beautiful finish. They'll take anything up and shine it up to a beautiful finish, because it takes it through such a nice slow series of changes in grade that you can get a really beautiful finish. I mean, for example, I don't know if you can see, but that finish on this headstock at the moment is just micro mesh. There's no varnish or lacquer on there at all. It's just polished by using those prior to putting a coat of lacquer onto this now beautifully smooth surface, and then putting the decal, the water slide, on top of that, and then adding some more lacquer, which is the next stage for this neck. But like I say, £8 or £9 for the micro mesh, and they last a long time. For some reason, because they're impregnated into the sheet, they don't wear out, but they produced great results, and a really nice controllable pace as well. So if you have to polish metal, as I'm doing now, it'll do the job. If you have to polish wood, it'll do the job, and if you have to polish a finish like varnish or lacquer, it'll also do the job. And around about the 4,000 mark, where we're heading to at the moment, I think I'm missing one here. There's a sheet missing from this collection. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 3,600 missing. Anyway, it's not critical, but by the time we get around to the 4,000 mark, like this, you know, it's starting to really shine. And everything after this is almost, well, it's not, but it looks cosmetic. There we go. 6. You can see the shine now, it's really nice. So you can see it's taken an hour and a half at least of good honest work to level, to reprofile and to polish these frets back up to a sort of precision condition or pristine condition. And you know, it's when you see how much time, or you've done it a few times yourself, and you can feel how much effort goes into it, it sort of begins to make a bit of sense why it isn't done on most guitars. Although, having said that, I do think this one did have some treatment at some point. But yeah, you can see why it's not really done, because it's a lot of effort. Now, actually, I'm not gonna put the Dremel layer on this. Partly because it's pretty much only cosmetic, but also it would mean going into the house and stopping everything to do it. And I'm just about to take that off, and suddenly it occurs to me I don't want to take that off, because on this guitar, unlike any others, I'm going to shortly go into the process of spraying it. So actually what I most want to do is mask all these off, so they can spray just the headstock. So we're kind of most of the way here anyway, so let's just continue the process. It's fun. Normally the reveal at this stage is very, very rewarding, having done all that hard work, but I'm going to delay the gratification a bit more, so that we get the headstock alteration done. And the alteration is just to spray a bit, basic layer of lacquer on, and then add our custom Morris reload decal, just for fun. And just for fun because it's more fun than the fake Fender as far as I'm concerned. And then we'll then add some more layers of lacquer after that to kind of thicken up and cover the decal. And once that's all done, we'll leave that for a while, maybe a week or so, and we'll come back to that and polish it out with wet and dry, and finally buff it up with mixture of a whole sort of series of things, which will run from sandpaper, wet and dry sandpaper, probably, for example, 240, then the 600, and then 2000 or 1500, and then switch over to the micro mesh, still with wet and dry. And at the end of the micro mesh, we'll go into the polishing creams, and go through a series of those to end up shining it. Having said that, I won't pay too much attention to it, mainly because the lacquer on the headstock doesn't take as much shining as a painted. Doesn't need to be as shiny as as finished, highly finished as lacquer does when it's on top of paint. That really needs to look good. Now I'm just thinking out loud here. This needs a bit of lacquering as well. So just thinking about how I'm going to edge this off and where I'm going to stop and start with the lacquer, because I think it does need, actually it's not too bad, I can just bring that up to a shine. I think I will just go all the way up the edge of this. So hopefully when we get through this process, we'll have a fretboard that's really nice to play. As I said, if for some reason if I try it out and it just feels too low, fingers too close to the board, then the result will be a refret. It'll just delay the guitar being used by longer. Right, I've got a few things to do, including Joe's acoustic coming up, but getting this masked off is important. So never goes round corners in a straight line, this stuff. It always folds and leans somewhere. Okay. Rightio, nearly there. I'll cover the nut as well, and let the other wood on the other side get lacquer sprayed. All right. So, almost done. Yep, that'll do for now. So there's our surface ready to go. I could actually apply a bit now if I do a bit of shaking, a whole load of shaking. I'll do it in here because it's warm and relatively dry, but it will get some fresh air afterwards. Oh, lovely finish already. Now a question I've got is, do I really need... No, you know what, this is such a good finish, I don't actually need to spray some on in order to fix the water slide decal. I can just go straight to that nice finish. So I guess the first thing I would do then is go and put the water slide on, or get a bowl of water and bring it out here to show you. So let me go do that. Pause for a minute. So I'm excited now, I'm excited. I have a bowl of water, and I have some water slide guitar stickers of my own making. And there is the thing. And I've got some medium-sized ones and some tiny ones. And I don't know which one. I know I've got one I'm going to do for Jean on that one over there. Let's have a think. I know there's a string tree there, but it goes just to the side of it, which is great. So I'm going to start with this sized one. I'm going to drop it in here. Very helpfully folds up immediately, but I'm just going to leave it in there. And then, once it's soaked in, then it's going to be a case of putting it on there, letting it dry on there, and after that, away we go. This one is an former Squier guitar. Again, this could go straight on there as well. It's smooth enough. So I'll do a second one. I'll do one on here first. Same size one. So let's see if that's done. Interestingly, it hasn't done enough, so I'll leave it soak a bit more. Need to be doing some of that. I knew I needed to order something more. My nitro clear lacquer. I could build it up, to be honest, with brush on lacquer, and you can polish the brush on the lacquer pretty well. Good enough certainly for headstocks. I've got a couple in the house that's done that way, but you know, the spray on does keep it much more even, and it makes it look pretty good. Okay, so let's see if we've got any movement. Here we go. Now, question is, where are the thingies? String trees. Getting a position on anything is always difficult, so notice that this thing can crack slightly, so it's quite easy for it to split slightly away on the colour splits apart if you pull too hard. I'm going to put some water on here to help this along a bit. I'm trying to move it around too much for my liking. Okay, there we have it. Morris, you are, broadly speaking, in place. Yeah, I can live with that. So I'm just going to gently press him home, as they say. Press down, just squeeze out any excess water. I'm going to leave him to dry. That's not too bad. Yeah, it's all intact actually. So I'll leave this dry, and then I will get on to the next bit of that. What an ugly mess of black paint I've got here. Again, while I'm doing several things at once, let me chuck some clear lacquer onto here now, of the water soluble, or that's not the right word, you know what I mean. Yeah, water soluble, waterborne lacquer. I'm just going to put it straight on top, and this will fill some of the gaps up, I hope. Put it on quite thick as well. In fact, I'll just do the quick way and pour it on. So two different types of stuff being used here. Waterborne for this test piece, which later on I'll use for exploring the different effects of mixing nitro and poly when it comes to doing repairs, and then on the water slide decals we're just using nitro alone, where in fact the nitro will be blending roughly with poly, because the stuff on the rest of this neck won't be nitro. It might be actually if it's a homemade luthier guitar. If it is, then we're just going to meet it with the right stuff. If it isn't, then we're going to be blending it. Okay, so the question is, there's our logo, there's our Morris. We're going for the big one, which will just fit down there. And what I've noticed is the lacquer breaks a little bit on here if you bend it too quickly the wrong way. It's quite brittle. So let's put it. It just coils up anyway. There's no way around that. Anyway, we'll see. We've got a few more, and that's only one sheet of paper used up. If it goes wrong, we can print some more. That looks quite nice there. I like the way that the wood, there's no colour, it's just black and white on Morris's mugshot there. Yeah, you can already see slight cracking on this water slide, but it isn't going to be so bad that it won't look okay underneath some lacquer. What I didn't do was do any preparation on this this headstock, but basically I'm going to spray all around. I'm going to spray all around, and then I'm going to chop it off here, because it's going to be just a gift, an ornamental gift. If this one messes up, and then I will use this one here in 2 bits, but hopefully it won't. I remember when I was used to do the Airfix models, these things would just soak in the water and then just float away in the dish, and you'd be chasing down a RAF roundel or whatever it was called. Actually, this still need to do quite a bit of drying before I lash out with the spray on lacquer. Let's see what we've got here. So, any movement? Yep. It's quite sort of tricky to start it and keep it in the right place and pull the other stuff out, but let's see if we can do it. Yeah, the letters definitely stretch. They got A lot of stretch in them there. But then they do come together again if you allow them to. They reconstitute. Need now to move. Please move. Thank you. We need Morris back down here a bit. That's not too bad. Matter of taking your time and just getting it where you want. That's quite nice. Just a gentle press down, hopefully, and then just check it again. There is, as I say, when you pull the decal away from the paper, it does do a sort of strange stretching thing, which ends up leaving stretch marks on the lettering or the picture. But as long as it's sitting on water, it then sort of it kind of shrinks back again. It seems to want to shrink back. So there you have the thing done. I quite like that. Be better than just the fake Fender thing. So I've put that down there to dry alongside the other one, and yeah, they're cool. It suits that smaller strat head better. It follows the line. It's a straighter line, so I like that. Okay, let's put these out of the way for now. Right, that's that one. Let's hold off and let's switch the video off, and come back with doing a little bit more on Jay's acoustic. Hi there folks, Sam here again in the Real Guitars workshop, and busy doing a few different things at the moment. So just a quick fly around. We've got over here, we've got the neck from the red custom built or luthier-built Stratocaster, which I've put a Morris Reloved label on. Got one over here which is just a lacquered neck, which I'm going to chop the headstock off and give that to a friend and long-time supporter of Reloved guitars. I got a little test going on here with some waterborne lacquer. I've got Jay's acoustic almost done. We've got one side, the binding on one side, I've just added some more lacquer and waiting for that to dry, and then I'm going to blend that in to the neck. So we've cured the overhang problem. Feels nice to play, and everything else ready to restring. Here we've got the almost finished Squier Standard Series Strat, which looks great but has some structural issues. People headbutting these Jay's strings. Yeah, it has one or two structural issues which are now stable, but will affect probably the sale price of this otherwise beautiful looking beastie. Here we've got a 1980s made in Korea laminate bodied Squier Stratocaster, which I've done the neck for, which is over here. Oh, sorry, I haven't done the neck. I've taken the frets out because the frets were worn out. So this is now waiting for the arrival of some 12-inch radius frets to be refretted. Here we've got headstock waiting to go. You can see how shiny that is. This is the prepared neck on my next oak guitar, which is sort of sitting down here somewhere and not yet done. I need a kind of clear weekend to do some serious sanding and sawing and filing. Here we've got the most interesting creature for a while. This is the Ibanez S521 MOL mahogany guitar, and it's just a beautiful piece of wood, very slim, elegant guitar, nice pickups. It's very precise playing, but it suffers from the SG, curse of the SG. It's head heavy, so it actually wears you out trying to play it. It can be cured. I've sort of solved it a bit by changing the strap, but it really does need some counterbalancing weight down this part of the guitar. So I'm going to see if I can sort of quite simply overcome that with a diving weight and a bit of Velcro. Just, I don't care what it looks like from behind, to be honest, as long as it plays comfortably. But because of that, and because I need a guitar that I can really comfortably hold and play live or rehearsing in the band that I've joined not too long ago, it doesn't cut it at the moment. Despite how much I like it, it just doesn't do it. The neck heaviness takes up too much energy. And I hate to say that, but it's absolutely the case. So it's on probation, or I don't know what you call it. It's on, yeah, probation. Here we have a really heavy lump of stratocaster, which goes with that neck over there. And this one I'm keeping for personal usage for the while. It's equipped with all Wilkinson parts. It's surprised me, I don't know why it surprised me, but the person who sold it claimed it was probably an affinity body, but actually one look under here should have told me possibly it's got a mixture of parts. Either that's a Wilkinson tremolo bridge and with a Wilkinson steel block, or it's a Korean strat steel block, as came with this one, and a Wilkinson gold finished top piece. Anyway, most of the hardware is Wilkinson, including the electrics and the pickups, but it feels fantastic. It's really heavy. It's heavier than that one. That's a lighter ply for some reason. This is more the weight of the one that I had through here a month or two ago, a beautiful white cream coloured Korean Squier, and it weighed a ton, but it was a lovely guitar, and it had the same maple neck. So I have a feeling, and I'm just revising my thinking here, I have a feeling, once upon a time I thought this was a bought neck attached to a Squier Affinity body. That's what the seller seemed to think it was, but I reckon this whole thing was a made in Korea Squier upgraded with Wilkinson equipment, because the Squier ones weren't fantastic. In fact, they weren't known to be very good. Adequate, but not fantastic. So somebody's upgraded that. What they've done is they've scraped off, somewhere in the mists of time, they scraped off the Squier made in Korea Headstock logo and stuff, and I think they've replaced it with a fake Fender decal, because it was a nice upgrade altogether as far as they were concerned. I don't like the fake stuff, so I've taken it off. I'm much happier to put a Morris Reloved Guitars with dear old Morris's mugshot on there, just for fun. And the reason why is I don't want it to pretend that it's something it isn't. I can't go back to making a Fender made in Korea, although, sorry, a Squier made in Korea, although if I did, this guitar would be quite easily worth upwards of 180 quid, because they're really, really popular. However, I know that I can't just go and put that graphics back on it, so I'm quite happy to keep it as it is. It has been through the reloved process. It's got a great leveled neck. It's got a custom logo on it, which isn't pretending to be something it's not, and it's got some great hardware. Together, it's a brilliant package. It plays brilliantly. But actually, now I think about it, it plays exactly brilliantly like the white made in Korea Squier 1980s plywood laminate Strat did. So there we have it. And interestingly, I've got a shim that's just fallen out here. Luckily I know it was sitting there, but if I didn't, I'd be in trouble. And I could always check back on the photographs that I took yesterday. So I haven't done what I normally do, which is to draw around it, but I will do that. Anyway, so yeah, pleased to kind of announce that that is, in fact, more than likely, all told, a Korean Squier, and what a nice thing it is too. I'm not going to do anything to this body. I'm not even going to take it apart. Everything on it works. I'm going to just do a little bit of polishing on here, not even that much. I'm just going to get that headstock sorted out, put the tuners back on, put it all back together again, and really enjoy the new low precise action that we'll have got from the fret leveling, which is why I did it. But yeah, hey, yeah, now I knew why. I knew there's a reason I liked it so much. It is the plywood, or the laminate, heavy duty Korean Squier, which I like, and I think the previous owner's done a damn good job upgrading it with Wilkinson pickups, because they're much better than the ones that were in there. The only thing I think I wouldn't have done is the headstock logo that they put on the fake Fender, because to me that runs a risk of fooling somebody, or even if you didn't intend it and it's just for a bit of fun, you are always going to run the risk of you're open to accusations that you were hoping to fool somebody, and that's not a good thing to do. So I don't think it's worth taking the risk, and to be honest, anyone who watches any of these videos knows that I'm not a brand junkie, so it doesn't matter to me whether it's a Fender or it's a Squier. As long as it's set up well and it plays well, I'm happy with it. And in the case of the Korean strats like this, then they are pretty good. As I said, there's nothing here that needs any work on. Everything played pretty well. Because it's been through the hands of somebody who knows what they're doing, that's an absolute kind of bonus, because that's why my phone keeps making noises. Yeah, it's a real sort of plus, because I've already sort of ascertained that the person whoever did this guitar clearly knew what they were about, and you can tell that from a number of things that we came across yesterday. But I'm just going to stick this little bit of shim back in. I don't think super glue and wood really mix very well, but I'm going to hope for the best with that. Yeah, I've forgotten exactly what they were now, but there were a number of things that would let me know that this guitar was pretty well set up. You know, and it made the claims of the person who was selling it absolutely completely credible and valid. So I don't think I've even cleaned this guitar since I got it. I just literally hung it up and then played it. So it doesn't hurt to give it a bit of a once over with naphtha. Typically I would normally take off this tremolo plate and do stuff, but I'm going to keep this guitar for playing for myself, so I'm just going to give it a bit of a quick wipe over. But it's not in a selling situation really, so I've got plenty of other things I need to set up and get ready for the marketplace. But this one I just want it to be kind of nicer looking. You can see on this guitar there's been it clearly had a different scratch plate on it. Oh, look, super glue on my fingertips. How did that get on there? It's stuck, isn't it? Right. Yeah, it's got a little screw hole, extra screw hole, which has been lightly filled and painted with a bit of red, and that was for where it had a different scratch plate in the past. Again, confirming what we know, which is it was a different guitar. So I suspect, given that, then what the owner's done is bought a loaded scratch plate. Wilkinson has supplied scratch plate with the pickups already wired in, and just done a changeover, which would be easier and probably only required some new holes putting into place. But get a clean cloth here. Is that clean? It's clean enough. So what I will do with this one, I'll probably take it inside to do this later on once I put the neck back on and stuff. But I'll take it inside and just give the body, the paintwork, a bit of a scratch, going over with scratch remover or one of the cleaning things. I'm a bit liberal with the scratch remover, and it's so bloody expensive. I can't really afford to be using it on every surface I see, but it's one of those things that's really tempting. As soon as you find it and you see it works, you want to use it everywhere. But this is this isn't going to be a totally shiny guitar. This is a playing guitar, and it looks great anyway because it's got a lovely sort of post box Royal Mail red, and with a bit of polishing it will come up quite nicely. But there we go. By and large, it's a pretty nice thing. There are one or two scratches there that if I had some red knocking about that just so happened to match. I do have some red, but I don't think it will happen to match. I'm going to try it just in the neck pocket. Now I can see already that it won't match. This is a very straight away. This matches. This is a perfect match for a blood red Sun Mustang that I sold, but it's not going to work, which is okay. At times like this, it's worth thinking about if we do take anything off here, is it worth taking a little fragment of paint from underneath to take in and try and match it up with something next time I'm in town. And it's quite fun to do that, because you get to sort of hang around in the Superdrug pretending to be buying nail varnish and getting some funny looks. But as you can see, it's a pretty nice looking guitar, just right straight away the way it is. By the time we put that nice neck back on, and with its nice frets, that's going to be lovely. So no further work required. Even the strap buttons are on pretty securely on this, which kind of is a bit rare. So other than a bit of a surface polish, which we can do at any time, that's going to hang back up and just wait for the neck to be finished. And with that neck, I'm not entirely sure. The spray on lacquer is so good that if you're careful, you can get a headstock that's pretty acceptable in terms of finish, without even going through the huge rigmarole with all the wet and dries. So if you can see this here, it's still got some cloudiness because it's drying, but by and large that's a very smooth finish, and it won't be long for that's maybe one or two more layers, and that's kind of done. I'm going to try and keep it closer to the fire, keep it in the warm, because it really doesn't like drafts. This lacquer, I've discovered, it is very sensitive to moisture and cold. So I'm just trying to make sure that it's getting the best warmth it can get. Righty ho. So that's it on the red Strat for now, but it's nice to have just worked out for my own peace of mind that exactly what it is. It's a Korean Squier, and it's the best of the Korean Squiers in my opinion, which is the massively heavy laminate, really solidly built, which comes with, when it comes with a maple neck, it's a beautiful fast action maple neck, and I love it. And that's that one over there. So even if when I did the frets yesterday on that neck, I was concerned that we were sort of at marginal lowest possible amount of metal to make it worthwhile, and even if it doesn't play, I've reserved the option then to just replace those. Okay, let's move on to another guitar. Hey, ooh, bright light, sorry. Yeah, just catching up on this neck. I've done the lacquering of the neck and polished it up, and apart from a little bit of roughness down here, which I could do separately, it's come up beautifully. I'm really pleased with that. And this is the neck I was talking about earlier, which is now clear to me is a Korean Squier neck, a Samick jobby, I think, which is probably why I liked it so much when I first played it. It's very familiar and reminds me of the other one, but I'm struggling a bit because I've used I don't know if it's the masking tape that I've used or whether it's masking tape and glossy lacquer, but either which way it creates an absolute pig of a job to get off. Not impossible, just it's going to take a lot of time, you know, when I wanted to do something fairly quickly and get this back together again sooner rather than later, but such is the way all these things go. But all in all, the lacquering of the logo, or whatever it is, the headstock, the decal, has been really successful. Done it all with spray in this case. The other one I've got down there, I've done some of it with brush and then sprayed on top of the brushwork to even it out, and it's so thick that I'll be able to sand it flat anyway to finish it off. And this is going to need some solvent using on it to get some of these off, but I mean they will come off, but it's just painstaking work really. But all in all, it's a very pleasing first go at making my own sticky decal of Little Morris and the Reloved word. I hadn't really planned it too long, and I quite like it that way. I don't want to get too precious about designs and things. And Dave Hughes had supplied me a few weeks ago with that word done in the Fender style font, and since most people like that kind of font on their guitars, I thought, well, I'll just go for that, not try and reinvent the wheel in any way. And then just playing around the other night, I sort of found myself thinking, oh, I don't want to get into this design thing that takes forever. And so kind of quickly, as I was even thinking that, I started playing around with a shot of Morris, and I just love that expression he has, that silly smile. So put that together with the reloved word in yellow, and it just seemed like a fun thing to do, and so that's the way it came out. As I say, I needed something fairly quick to test out the new paper that I bought to do the water slide decals with. So I don't know why this masking tape has such an issue with this particular glossy lacquer, but it bloody well does. It'll get there in the end, but it's boring for me and boring for you, so I'll just leave it there. But I just wanted you to be able to see how nice that looks. Like I say, a little slight grainy speckled bit down there, which I'll do a bit of separate polishing on. But out you go, Morris. Go on, go on, go on, quick. But yeah, very nice, and just feels really well done. Okay. Okay, well, just a quick bit here, as I need to do some real tidying up because I've made a bit of a mess all round. But before I do that, I'm going to take the fun part of putting, what are those things called? Tuners, back onto this Morris neck, the reloved guitar's Morris neck, as I call it. If I can find out where I put all those bits, it's in the bowl, and they're all actually quite clean condition to begin with, so it won't take too much to put this back together again. I think I've got all the pieces. In fact, this guitar is not just a case of putting the neck, putting the tuners back on. This is a case of putting the whole thing back together, because it's all that we have to do. If I turn the light off my phone first of all. So I wanted a cloth, just in case I need to wipe these a little bit. Oh wow, this is so cool. Right, now these ferrules were, I'm not quite sure, they were glued in place, so I'm hoping that we don't have to glue them back in, because this one needs cleaning off. Don't want to have to glue them in, because it just makes things more difficult. Knifey thing, please. Still got quite a bit of glue sticking out all over it here, so I'm just going to try and scrape that off so that it will at least go into the hole. So many little things get in the way of progressing. Yeah, so it's kind of eagerness to get it together again and see how it looks with Monsieur Le Morris. Okay, this one has some stuff stuck in there, and I think I'm just going to use this thing to clear it out a little bit. See if that's improved it. And again, doesn't quite sit flat. Too much of the glue in there from before, so I have to be careful. Get the right way up. Okay, that sits in there. Obviously these things were first time round. I think these looked like they had to be kind of worked, squeezed in quite hard and glued into place once they were in. You can see why, because actually they do look like they're going to jump off as soon as I push anything through there. And there's nothing about this that holds them in place. So to be sensible, I guess I would be forced to do what the fella before did, which was to put a little bit of glue in there to hold them in place. Although I'm reluctant to do it, I don't have much choice. Damn it. Providing I can poke them out again quickly. And actually, some of them will just fall out. I'm using the wrong sized thing. So, dropping them. Oh, that is just so exquisitely annoying, because now it's dropped out to where I don't know. Somewhere on the wood, and somewhere where I have to go and search for it. The real life joys of working in a dark shed. Hello. Now I have to get a torch because this damn ferrule has gone for a walk. I've got 5 of them and one of them's gone walkies. Talk about frustrating. Of course, on first looks, there's nothing there. Oh, that is just galling. I heard it hit the floor with the noise that you'd expect it to make, and then pretty much vanish. The thing I notice, it's quite cold down here from the ground level. So having pulled out the various things that are under here, including the ladder, and finding no sign of said ferrule, I have to conclude it's not there, and I can see it's gone directly behind the post. You'll be really pleased that I kept all of that misery in the video. Right, so as I say, these holes are already a bit gummed up, so I think what I'll do is I'll put glue inside, and we can wipe it off the top quite simply. Not putting much in there, just enough that it will hold it in place, I guess, as the previous person did, Mr. Luthier. Technically these kind of ferrules are supposed to hold themselves in place because they've got sort of ribbed sides, striped sides if you like. But if they've worn out the grooves already, then they're obviously not going to do it. So I'm just going to push these back in. We can carry on and just do the tuners and don't have to wait for this or anything, because it's going to end up holding it. It'll dry over time and get stronger as time goes by. But right, so we need to make sure that we know which ones are the end ones, because there are some top and bottom, and they live in a particular, live a certain way round, and it's that way round. And then the rest just go in a sequence. One at the end. That wasn't very clever because I think, yep, the ferrules come out there. Oh! What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the fine, make sure I've got a fine screwdriver head in there and do it with one of those. Making sure I get it the right way round, of course. And these have to be done in pairs because they share screws. And there seems to be, some of them seem to be different lengths as well, which is a bit odd. Okay. I'll put that ferrule back in a minute. It's a funny arrangement, really. I think it's far from ideal. It's sort of loose, and actually it's very far from ideal. They're loose, and you have to hope that they pin them down in the way that they sit. I have to say, this one doesn't look like it's going to do it. It looks like there's too much of a gap. But given the way it all goes, I don't see any alternatives to doing it that way. But let's get them all tacked in first, and we're losing ferrules all over the place. And of course I can't pick them up properly because I've got big clumsy hands. I think that's the only place where I get really frustrated making things or doing this kind of stuff, is when it requires a degree of dexterity that I either never had or no longer have, since I had a bike accident years ago. And that did mess up some of the coordination or the fine control. Do you know what? I've never really put a set of these in place before, and I really don't like the process. It's all a bit ham-fisted for my liking. I don't really know what's going to keep them in place the way they should be. I seem to be trying to hold two pairs of things down and trust that one screw is going to hold two things in place, which seems a bit hopeful. That seems to have missed that one altogether. This is really not very good, and this one seems to be miles away from the one, and there's too much room. And that's because the ferrule has come out, isn't it? Yes, thank you, it is. That will push that into place and improve things a little bit, as will that one. Just clear up any mess overlapping. Just want to hope they stay in place long enough to get these things tacked down where they need to be. Come along. Now that's pushed it off to one side. It's pretty right, that is not good. Christ, that's not what I wanted to happen. Stripping don't have a lot of grip on these things. That is, of course, they're soft bloody screws, aren't they? I cannot get this thing off now. Just when you want it to go right, which probably means that I'm condemned to trying to cut a slot in here to get this thing out in order to put another one in, which I have one more spare one. Actually I've got two spares. Looking at this, I need to find some more. One spare. Annoying. So yeah, that means I now have no choice but to try and cut out. I have to use a file to try and cut this out, and of course I'm running out of time as well because I've got to go in for something to eat. The question is, can I remove it with a screwdriver that just temporarily happens to fit? I would appreciate it if that was the case. And the answer is no. Is there any chance it's going to do it with that one? Nope. Okay, no choice but to file a slot in it. And of course, the tools I've got to do that with are limited. And it's, see if I can do it with one of these 16. This is the one I use for doing the nut slots. If I'm careful, or if I'm lucky, I may just be able to cut a slot into here. It's actually, amazingly, it's easier than I thought. And that then will give me the opportunity to take it out with a flat head. So you're seeing remedial surgery here going on. Blimey. Come on. Blade than that. Yes, turning, thankfully. Those nut files have earned their worth, or may have equalled their worth, and their keep, I should say. That's could have been a struggle without those, or without that one. And so annoying to have got so far in this process, and have done a really nice nice job on this on these on this headstock, and then to have it screwed up by this going wrong. Now, this is the problem, is the nature of the gap between these two. It's actually too big. And this is not holding it correctly. I'm going to do my best, but this magnetic screwdriver is jumping all over the place. Yeah, it's not ideal. God, it's such a lousy solution. I mean, I like the tuning potential of these things, but my God, what a hopeless positioning solution. This is where I'm just going to hope that it stays in the right place. Some of them are really close together and others are further apart, so no idea why that has ended up being the case. too much movement for my liking, but well, at least when these are under pressure they're not going to move anywhere. Right, I'll chuck that away, and I guess I'll stop the video now and go in and get something to eat before I do the next bit, which is to put the neck back onto the body and pretty much complete it actually. So after that I promised myself a thorough clean up before I go any further, because I'm getting a bit claustrophobic with all this stuff in the way. I know the bits I need are there. Velcro can be your friend, but when it catches on things that you don't want it catching on, it can be such a pain. Right. Okay. Well, there's the headstock with its tuners on, albeit under duress, under some sort of protest. Looks nice. Mr. Morris, reloved. Chuck the light on it. Ooh, I've just pulled this out of its holder. Okay, right, enough. I'll come back when I'm ready to put the neck on. Well, coming to the end of some work in the shed, and I'm ready to put the neck and body back together again of this lovely guitar, which I'm pretty sure was originally a Squier Korean Stratocaster. The ones that are made of laminate. I was going to say ply, but that's the wrong word. It's laminate, which is several sheets of ply, I suppose. Just one way around it. But. And this is the one thing I haven't done on this guitar. I'm not going to do it now because it's going to take too long, but there's a patch of unlacquered neck there. Obviously from, well, obviously, I say obviously, presumably from where the previous owner, maker, whatever, had shaved it down to fit. Although actually, if that's the case, then it doesn't stick with my story of this being both the neck and the body being from the same guitar, which I have a feeling they are. But that doesn't make sense. Now I've turned the this plate upside down. Not that it really matters, but I just noticed that it has a little number on it. So for the sake of, I don't know what, accuracy, I'm just going to spin it round. So the little number is at the top. I've no idea what that little number signifies. Still, kind of looks a bit like a serial number. Right. Going to check this is seated nicely, everything's in good shape, everything's matched up, nothing's sticking out or hanging over the end anywhere. That's fine. And I'm going to do it up with a torque of 6. done. And then with the manual screwdriver, I'm just going to give it one turn, or half a turn, a quarter turn actually, that's it. Just a little bit more bite so it just won't go anywhere, but not excessive force. So there we have it. We have the reloved Stratocaster back together with its beautiful built-in trim, which actually isn't pulling anywhere at the moment because it's obviously not got the string pressure on it, which it really needs to even it up. And now, of course, this makes it hard to get the thing out. We've got a single string tree to go in at the top here with a smaller. We've got that one that's a lacquered screw, so we'll throw that one away. Put the string tree back, and everything is probably intonated correctly as is. So I just want to see now, while I'm here, let's see if have we got any of those string trees. We've got gold screws, but no gold string trees. We've got strap buttons, which we've got anyway in gold. So what I don't quite understand is where they went. Some ferrules, jack plug plate. Ah, the little string trees. Well, I'll have a look at what they look like. They're not gold, which is a very different thing. I don't know. We could have two. There's no reason why we shouldn't have two. Except they just look a bit out of place. There are two holes that look like they need them. I mean, they would function better, but I guess if I was going to replace them, I'd probably go for a gold version to be in keeping with the rest of it. So I'll just hold off that for now. At least I know I've got some. The only other thing I suppose would be if I do have a gold string tree here, that would be worth using. Brass actually, but I don't think I do. So that's kind of put an end to that supposition. Various gold bits in here, but not a string tree. No. My labelling system, as you can tell, isn't doing a hellishly impressive job. There's a string tree there, which will do the job. Ah, do I need this? Yes, I do. Do I need that? That I think I do need. I'm going to put that somewhere because it's a. No, that's no good unless I've got. Sorry, I'm thinking out loud for other things. So I've got a string tree. Would it look any good? Well, it's one gold, one silver. Looks a bit odd. The alternative. I've done it again. I can't believe it. Something tells me that I should be putting the brakes on now and stopping, because yet again I've dropped something on the floor, and this time there isn't. Oh yeah, well, by luck it hasn't gone very far. By luck and a good torch. Bloody hell. Let's just get this string tree in place before anything else goes wrong. So annoying. Now I'm putting it in on top of some lacquer, so I have to be careful to get it into place. Sorry, you can't see anything there. Okay, that's in place next to old Morris. As the alternative is a metal string tree, which, unless there's another one, oh, there's a little stand there for the taller one. Yeah, maybe. Have I got a gold? If I've got a gold screw, I'll put this other one in. That's the only way I'll do it. It's not going to be in there. Not in there. It will be in there or in there. Wow. There's a few string trees kicking about in here, and they're smaller actually. That's probably a better one. And then there is the bottom part. That's nice. And now all I want is a gold screw. Don't we all? What the hell colour is that? Of course, just when you need one, you can't find one. There's a couple of little screws that will do the job, but none of them look terribly gold to me. And actually this light probably isn't helping much. I think I probably got a gold screw in the pickup department. Sorry, the pick guard tremolo screw department. Just a bit annoying. Yeah, no, oh, no. Maybe. So far, no. Yes. What colour is that? No. That's really weird. I was sure I had a few kicking about. There's some gold ones. They are pickguard screws. Oh. Where would these have gone? Come on, Sam. Think about it. Where would they have gone? Gold hardware. I've fitted some gold hardware before. There's no doubt about that. Let's see. Anyway, the bottom line is that's not going to do anything right now. So put them away. Okay. I can always replace this later, but for now I'm going to fit something that will do the job. Just. Right, put that in place. That's okay. It's tidier than having the hole there, anyway. Okay, so I'm going to flip over, attach, fix this in place. I don't need to have this open to put the strings in. I'll take the strings indoors and do them inside where it's nice and warm. You've pretty much got everything in order now. These are a bit stripped, so they're not the tightest screws, but they will hold. Yeah, lovely looking guitar. As I say, I'm kind of lucky that I think I can fairly well rest assured that the intonation is as it was, and I expect to find that that's correct, so it won't require any extra work. But I forgot where the tremolo went for a minute, so that can sit in there. All I need to take in with me now is a set of strings, some string pliers, and we'll leave tidying up the rest of the place till tomorrow, because I think that's probably about enough. And I've also got 2 guitars to carry in, one of which I'll take in a bag. So amidst a lot of faffing about, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the red Squier Wilkinson hybrid stratocaster. Good looking beast. Not quite sure which it is, but either which way it's a nice creature, and I think it's going to make a nice gigging guitar for me for a while. But in case you're coming to it later on as a buyer, then this guitar you'll at least be able to see what it took to get this guitar into a good playing shape, particularly with the neck and that fabulous new Reloved logo. This one, I'm just doing a quick check before I go into the house to see. That's a nice tremolo arm, but I think it goes with the vintage guitar. This has got no end to it. There's no end. I don't know if this works. Actually, I don't know why I'm doing this, because I've locked it down, haven't I? Oh. Strike that. It is the end of too long a day. Started very early this morning with doing some corporate stuff, so I need to stop and do something else. Take these guitars out. So, armed with the work done, thanks for sticking with this, and I hope you enjoyed the red mysterious guitar setup, which I think was in the end a Korean Squier body, possibly a Korean Squier neck. It looks very familiar, although I don't know why it would need any reworking, so that suggests it's something else. But either which way, it's got a really nice action, really nice feel, maple neck, lovely solid plywood guitar. So, beautiful guitar. Hope you, if you end up playing it, hope you enjoy it as much as I already have. Okay, so back soon.